When I was a kid, I was really into the Omega Brain Yo-yo, and we have one of the founders, right?
Absolutely.
Of Yomega. What is your name and what's your story?
Well, my name is Len Amaral, and we started Yomega in 1984. And it started as a very humble effort with the main product that we still have today that's in our flagship line is the yo-yo with a brain. It had a centrifugal clutch, and it made it easier for especially the beginner, to get into yo-yo play and get into doing some tricks. It was modular. You could take it apart if you got a knot in the string, which that happens when you're doing yo-yo tricks. Mm-hmm. If it's a solid yo-yo, a beginner thinks he can pull the knot out. He makes it even worse. Now you got to cut the string out. Well, with the modular effect of the yo-yo, you can take it apart, take your knot out, screw it back together, you're back in business.
Did you know it was going to be a hit when you launched it, or like what were you thinking about in 1984?
In 1984, it was my brother, my sister, and a gentleman by the name of Michael Caffrey, who had the patent on the yo-yo with a brain. I got involved because I've got my brother's a lawyer. He didn't have the time during the day to work on the manufacturing end of putting the yo-yos together and working with the injection molders and the screw machine house that made the axles, the ball bearing company that made the ball bearings, the packaging people, the pad printing, decorations. I mean, there's so much involved in putting the product together. So my sister was living up near Boston. My brother, an attorney.
The worst.
Yeah, well, that goes with the territory. But I was a musician. I still am a musician, but I had my days off, so I could work with the various contractors putting all the components together. So I became part of the company, and then as it grew, I acquired more of the shares of the company. And it started off, I didn't believe it would actually grow into what it did.
We'll get to that, but I have a quick question. So in 1984, you have injection molding, you have pad printing, you have bearings, you have string, you've got the metal inside it. Was all that made in America?
It was. Not only was it all made in America, it was all made within a 50-mile radius of the factory in Fall River, Massachusetts. And people would ask me, well, you know, if you went to this other screw machine house in another state, you could save 5 cents on an axle.
Yeah.
And my response to that was, yeah, but if I have a problem, somebody within a 50-mile radius, I'm walking through their door, within an hour of me hanging up the phone. And that's how we did quality control. That's how we did getting every part. If you can't get one little axle, right, the production just stops dead in its tracks.
Yeah.
So you had to get all these components, and they had to be put together in such a way that the quality control was held.
Literally all those things, like even the string in 84 was made in within Massachusetts.
Right. The only thing that we couldn't get locally was the string, and that was only available from Mexico at the time. Yeah. Wow. So we had to do that. But the string wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
It was it was a valuable component.
Yeah.
But it was we didn't have to worry about quality control. We didn't have to worry about ordering and getting the strings in on time.
Yeah.
And we'd order them, and even though we weren't making a lot, we'd order 10,000 strings only if we were only making 2,000 yo-yos.
Yeah.
And then as the inventory went down, we reordered.
Yeah.
So for that one component, that was the only component that we had to get from an outside source.
So I guessed, and I'll come back to manufacturing in a little bit, I guess that you sold. My guess is you sold. Like I played with the Omega yo-yo in the brain. I guess that you sold somewhere between 10 million and 100 million yo-yos over the past. Do you know how many you sold in the 40 years?
I don't know.
Okay.
But the boom years.
Yeah.
All right. We started in '84.
Yeah.
We didn't actually have a product until maybe '86.
2 years.
All right. And then we did trade shows. We did the Toy Fair in New York City.
Yeah.
And that was the most valuable trade show at the time.
Right.
And then we did gift shows, and we had a 10-foot booth. I'll tell you one little story really fast.
Mm-hmm.
We shared a booth. You heard of Beanie Babies?
Yeah, I know. We sell plush. I know Beanie Babies.
Okay, you know Ty?
Yeah, the billionaire.
The billionaire, right?
Yeah.
We actually shared a booth with him. All right? It was like a 10-foot booth we had half.
And you put him to shame.
No. It was like he was a fledgling entrepreneur, and we were also. And obviously we went in different directions, but it was a time in history that was just so different.
When was this? What year?
89?
I was 2.
You were 2. Well, I saw Ty at this past toy fair in New York City, and
he's in his 80s, right?
Yeah, well, I'm 76.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Curveball.
Yeah. So, we both did good.
If you were to guess, I gotta pin you down. How many yo-yos have you sold over the 40 years?
The boom years, middle 1990s.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when I was hitting that brain and the Fireball.
The Fireball. I have a patent. That was my patent.
Really?
On the Fireball. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you an interesting story of the transaxle in the Fireball, because that's what it's known for, is the transaxle.
Okay.
All right. So I go to my patent lawyer, and he says, I think you got something original here with the it wasn't the Fireball at the time. We didn't even have a name for it. He says, what are you going to call the internal workings? I don't know. So he says, well, you got to give it a name, because you got the yo-yo with a brain with a clutch.
Right.
He says, you're going to have this model. What are you going to call it? I said, I don't know. I'm racking my brain to come up with something. So I take my wife to the movies, and we saw the Alien movie with Sigourney Weaver.
Okay.
This is Alien 2, not Alien 1.
Okay.
So in the movie, while she's running over in this military vehicle, while she's running over aliens, somebody in the military vehicle says, Ripley, stop. You just blew the transaxle.
Okay.
I went, oh, transaxle. So I called the patent lawyer back. I said, yeah, call it a transaxle. And that's how that got started.
But that's not the important name. The important name is Fireball, right?
Fireball.
That's where I thought you were going.
Well, originally it was called the Outrageous Yo. That was the first name.
Okay.
Okay? And then as we got rolling and production started, they said, well, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't, so we had a head session, and you throw out names, and Fireball came out, and that's what it's called.
So
How many do we make?
Oh, no. I mean, if you want to volunteer that info.
I couldn't give you a yearly estimate on how many per year.
Yeah.
But coming up into the late 90s and early 2000s, we formed a relationship with the Bandai company. In
Bandai, like the Japanese.
Yeah, Bandai. Yeah. Oh,
okay.
I say Bandai. I'm from not too far from Boston.
Okay.
All right. So because they were buying containers from us, and they were actually taking half.
Wait. So these were made in the USA yo-yos being sold into Japan.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
They would order 1 million pieces.
Okay.
So we were a very humble, small company, but we grew. By the late 90s, we had
Whoa, sorry. 1 million pieces to Japan. I had to wrap my mind around that for a
But they
second.
were ordering 2 million pieces.
2 million pieces. Okay, even better.
So what they approached us with is, let us make the yo-yo. We'll call it Yo-mega, Fireball,
Okay.
and Raider. They
Okay.
wanted the Raider also, another model that we have. And then it would say Bondi at the bottom. So we worked on a royalty agreement.
Because you had the patents.
We had the patent, and we couldn't provide the quantity that they wanted. So that's how that started, and they did a wonderful job in the early 2000s with...
So made in America all the way through the 90s.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
All the way through the 90s. And Bondi, when they worked out the royalty agreement with us, they had it made.
Well, when did Yo-mega Yo-yos start? When were they made in Japan? What was the first year?
I don't think they were made. I think they had them made in China,
Ah, okay.
and then it had the Yo-mega Bondi name on it.
Got it.
But that was early 2000s, so that was 25 years ago.
Right, and there was a Japanese guy. I used to see him at the shows. He was like the world's best yo-yo. And maybe was he at your booth? He was like the world champion yo-yo.
Over the years, we've had a number of world champion demonstrators
Yeah.
at our booth.
Right.
But we did so many trade shows, and I did the toy fair every year, but I didn't do a lot of the other trade shows because I was just too busy at the manufacturing end.
Yeah.
So that's basically how that went. They took care of the market. Bondi took care of the market in Japan, and the Japanese players. The new owner of Yo-mega, my sister and myself sold Yo-mega to a wonderful distributor we had for 3 decades,
Okay.
and he's in Tel Aviv.
Okay.
And
Hey, there's some like Israeli guy who has like not MGA, who has some sort of Saban. Not him. Saban? No, different.
no, but the reason this Israeli distributor,
Yeah.
he was in on the boom, and he opened up the Israeli market. He was actually airlifting in a ton of yo-yos almost on a weekly basis.
USA or made?
USA, no, USA, sending them to Israel, and so he worked that market. He also opened up a branch in Canada, and we shipped many USA Yo-megas into Canada.
Yeah.
But these are the early days. We didn't have any competition. I mean, we had people across the hall, Duncan, they're good people.
Fuck Duncan.
Oh.
Sorry. That was me.
Okay.
Omega would never say that.
No, I wouldn't. I would never say that. Anyway, with all these new markets opening up, and everybody wanted to. It was like a world yo-yo boom, all at the same time.
This is in the late 90s, right?
Late 90s, yeah. Before that,
It started by you, I think, because the brain was like a game changer, and with like I remember like the sleeps and all that. I'm like a kid. I thought this was the coolest thing in the world. Still do.
In the early, late 80s, early 90s, right, we would be getting calls like from Talladega, Alabama, from all kinds of stores. There's a yo-yo craze going on.
Yeah.
And then it would be some other city. A yo-yo craze, this is not scientific, but generally about 6 weeks. They go nuts.
So one kid who's like, break it down for me.
Yeah. One kid will go to school,
Okay.
and he'll be halfway decent with a yo-yo.
Right.
And then it's almost like an infectious event where all these kids
Yes.
are grabbing yo-yos and they're playing, and then it grows from that. And then the store owners, kids were going into stores asking for Omega Brain yo-yos.
Right.
So we'd open up new accounts, and then it just started from that, and then it just mushroomed. It went across the United States, and then it just spread to other countries. I mean, we were feeding the UK, we were feeding obviously Israel, Canada, and some other countries.
Did you operate the factory yourself, or it was just you closely managed all the people in Massachusetts?
The guy that had the keys to the place opened it up in the morning until we had two 25,000 square foot factories and over 300 employees.
You were operating them?
Yeah.
Dude, that's not easy.
No, not easy. You had to learn how to be a diplomat, dealing with employees. But I can say this.
Yeah.
This whole effort would not have been successful anywhere else in the world.
Why?
Fall River, Massachusetts.
Okay.
All right? It was the needle trade capital of the world.
Okay.
All right? All the mills, all the women who were into the needle trades. My mother she worked at a hat factory, a men's hat factory.
Okay.
This is when hats were felt hats. And hats were they were part of your
Everyone had one.
Yeah, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Men had a felt hat. That was part of your daily dress.
Right.
Okay, so she worked in a hat factory, and she sewed the bands on the hats. Mm-hmm. Now, Fall River, Massachusetts, coats, shirts,
shoes.
curtains.
Shoes, or that's Maine.
Brockton was shoes.
Brockton is that place in Massachusetts?
Yeah, Brockton, Massachusetts was known for shoes. But
Yeah.
any kind of needle trade, you had all these mills with all these women.
Yeah.
All right? So by the late 70s and early 80s, they started to close the mill downs. These mills, they were going down south or overseas.
Yep.
All right? So we had this workforce of women that could sit all day long
And assemble?
assemble. The hardest job of assembling a yo-yo is putting the yo-yo string on.
So this is the hardest job. Not to be
Right.
confused with the hottest job.
Well, that's my accent coming through. The hardest job.
The hardest job.
Unwinding string,
Yeah.
right? And then putting it around the yo-yo. And in the early days, we didn't have automatic string winders. So they had to...
And it was 100% woman, I bet, doing that because
100%
my
woman.
hands don't work.
100% women used to doing repetitive, monotonous jobs.
Yeah.
And you could hire someone who wasn't... They didn't have a history in the needle trades.
Yeah.
And you hire them, they last for 1 or 2 days.
So they had to, and where did that come from? Like, did they just, they weren't used to the work, or?
The adaptation of these hand procedures, the assembly, the putting the yo-yo strings on, the packaging,
Yeah.
they were used to those type of repetitive jobs. And they thrived in it. Mm-hmm. And they were happy because their prior work had gone away. So it was like, what the hell are they going to do?
Yeah.
So they would come in and they'd tell me that I'd be interviewing somebody. And I said, where'd you work before? And they say, oh, I worked at the Kern Mill making curtains. I said, you did sewing and all that? Oh, yeah. You get hired on the spot.
Yeah, you just
come on in, have a cup of coffee.
you don't need to, you just put them in front of the machine. You just be like, start, and you watch them. Is that right?
You have to give them a little bit of
Training.
A little training just to kind of get them going. But
Yeah.
then, and I thought that I knew everything. They would invent ways of increasing production by themselves. It was a fantastic event to see happening, and they all got along. You know, usually sometimes.
Really?
I'm telling you, they'd be assembling the yo-yos and they'd be talking to each other about recipes and how they made Sunday dinner and sending the stuff down the line. It was just unbelievable.
Were they paid by the piece or were they paid hourly?
No, hourly wage.
And so they were just improving and inventing organically, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
You know, it's. I had people come in and say, "Oh, you should do a time study, and you should automate, and you should do all these things." And I say, "Look at all these people." I said, they're putting all these orders together, and they're going out the door, and there's no problems. Oh, one guy finally said that he was trying to sell me an automation process. He said, "You know what? I got to agree with you." He said, if it works, don't.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's it. That's what it came down to.
Okay. When did it move to China?
One of our patents on the yo-yo with a brain ran out.
Okay.
All right, so our competition started making our yo-yos, and they were making them overseas. So we eventually, and also at that time, the world boom started to diminish.
The yo-yo worldwide boom of...
Right, and so we were stuck between a rock and a hard place. So we had so many companies knocking us off, right? We had no choice but to knock ourselves off to compete with our competitors who were making our products that we designed. So I'm going to say middle 2005, 6, 7, somewhere around there, we had to go overseas.
With Bandai?
No, not with Bandai. At that time, Bandai, they ran through one promotion that lasted maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
All right, and then it subsided. All right, but when we knocked ourselves off to go to China, this was for our own stock to sell to our customer base.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Bandai. But then in 2010, Bandai came back at us, and they had another mini boom. It was a mini boom. It wasn't as big as the one
90s.
in the late 90s, early 2000s. But anyway, they did the same thing. They made fireballs and raiders. They did, at that time, I don't think they made the yo-yo with a brain, but it was all welcome because we didn't have to make the product, worry about quality control, worry about distribution and shipping and all that. So that's what we did.
I have many more questions, but if you don't mind me asking, when you did a tremendous thing for the community, right? Because you had 300 plus people, 2 factories, all in Massachusetts.
All over Massachusetts.
And on top of that, you're buying from all the component suppliers who have to hire people to keep up with the demand and all that. What was it like seeing it in China versus in Massachusetts?
Bittersweet. It would have been nice. I mean, I said we started off very humbly, all right? I actually had my mother and father assembling yo-yos back in the early days.
Yeah.
So, you got memories of that, and you've got memories of a lot of good times, watching the company grow and watching, providing jobs for people. And, so it's like it kind of came to an end when, when the production moved to China, I retired. And I retired from the Omega 4 times.
Okay.
All right? And here I am at 76 years old in San Antonio at a convention center doing another trade show. So the new owner was so gracious to hold me over as a consultant and to participate in some new items that we got in the works. And also I got a chance to travel, and
What is your viewpoint now that we're talking about bringing manufacturing back to America? Like, how do you view it? because you did it. Not a lot of people have actually done it, and you did it at scale, and people don't understand how hard that is, and also kind of like how magical it is too, right?
It is, but I'm also a realist. So if we were to bring manufacturing back, start making yo-yos here again,
Yeah.
who's going to afford them? You know, even with the tariffs and all that, which is hey, you're here at this show. The buzzword is tariffs and
Right.
price increases, and what's going to happen in the future? Will they go away? Will they be increased? Our buyers that are coming through are very concerned about that. Well, okay, so if you want to make them here in the United States, the labor costs, the material costs, I don't know what it would cost to put a yo-yo together right now in the United States without it costing 3 times as much as what we're selling them now.
Can you even get the ball bearings?
Oh yeah, you can get them.
Can?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I can get them.
Made in America or?
Made in America.
Interesting.
Right, but the ball bearing companies here in America are making ball bearings to put in dentist drills. What do you think that costs?
Yeah.
You know, packaging.
Right.
Packaging is part of the product. Mm-hmm. So if you want to just stick it in a baggie and hang it on a rack, that's one thing. But if you want colorful, robust packaging,
Yeah.
you got to spend some money on that.
Yeah.
And we do, even though it's overseas. But if you had to bring that back to the United States, I don't know what that would cost.
Yeah.
It would probably, the product and the end result would be cost prohibitive. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're closing the show on us.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. This was awesome.
Okay. I thank you very much. And hey, let's keep going forward. And when can I see this podcast?
I'll try to put it up today. I'll put it on X. I'll put it on TikTok. And
really? Okay.
where can people get like the coolest and latest Yo-mega yo-yos?
Oh, you know, everywhere from the brick and mortar stores, online,
Yeah.
and the company everybody loves to hate, Amazon.
We love to hate Amazon here. I hate Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was really cool.
Okay, all right. Take it easy.